So the third generation Ford Escort got a redesign and went on sale in 1996 as a 1997 model. Now at first it was just the sedan and wagon, but later on they decided to bring out a two-door coupe variant. So when this two-door coupe model went on sale, it was small, sporty, and economical, and the design language was quite different, with it being more radical than what was on the more conservative sedan and wagon. Now at the end of the day, this was still an economy car. It just has sporty sheet metal. So with that being said, you could forget about a V6 in one of these. By 1998, the Probe and the Thunderbird were already out of production. So if you wanted a two-door with a V6, Ford rather you just spend some extra money and just get a 3.8 liter Mustang. What you could get in the Escort ZX2 was a 2-liter dual overhead cam Z-Tech 4-cylinder engine. The engine produced 130 horsepower and 127 pound-feet of torque, and the average fuel economy was rated at 33 miles per gallon. This particular engine was standard equipment and was not offered on the sedan or wagon. Now, this engine was intended to be used as the base engine in the Ford Mondeo. I'm sure most of you guys know what a Mondeo is, but for those of you that do not, it is a Ford model that is sold in Europe. So this engine was also in the Mondeo's American counterparts, the Ford Contour and the Mercury Mystique. But since the ZX2 was relatively small and lightweight, the Z-Tech engine did give it pretty good performance.
Rule number 1 says you have to spend at least $30,000 to own a sports car. Rule number 2, you can't have performance, maneuverability, and excitement in a vehicle that's not made in Europe. And rule number 3, no smiling while you're driving. Well, in 1999, ZX2 continues to break these rules in a big way, with quality, dependability, stylish design, and value.
A new performance edition of the ZX2 was released, and it was called the ZX2 SR. This particular model was first shown at SEMA's Import Auto Salon in 1999. This model was inspired by the hugely popular and successful import tuners of that time. So they came out with this ZX2 SR and they wanted it to compete with things like the Civic Si and other cars similar to that. As a collaboration effort between Ford Racing and Ford Small Vehicle Center product development, the ZX2 SR ended up being the first car they developed together. The SR came with a bunch of upgrades, but most notably it added stiffer suspension components, a special wheel and tire package, a short throw B&M shifter, and yes, it definitely came with more horsepower. So the power output was up, now at 143 over the regular ZX2's 130. Some of these SRs left the assembly plant without some of the performance mods. The suspension bushings were not factory installed. Instead, it was just packaged with the car and was simply left up to the dealerships to do the install once the car arrived there. It sounded like an okay plan to have dealerships install the extra parts, but a lot of dealerships did not install the extra parts like they were supposed to. So that caused a lot of these cars to leave the dealership showroom without having all of the necessary SR parts installed. But despite those occasional hiccups, many SR owners loved their cars, mentioning them being fun to drive with the extra power and slick shifter. For the relatively low price tag, many owners mentioned their cars were reasonably quick.
Well, ZX2's brand positioning is that it's a sporty, fun to drive, contemporary styled vehicle that is also very affordable.
ZX2 for the money is an absolute blast to drive.
Certainly, I believe that ZX2 delivers on that sporty, youthful, I'm cool image. It provides all of the functions and features that a customer has come to know and want in a sports car, but at an affordable price that won't break the bank. It's the type of vehicle that is an image perception vehicle. I want to be seen in it because this makes me look cool and reflects my image.
So Ford decided to keep the ZX2 in production for a little while longer, but I will admit the car was becoming a bit stale by the early 2000s. Matter of fact, I remember reading the Sunday newspaper back in 2003 and recall seeing a brand new Ford ZX2 for sale alongside the other 2003 models. And even at that time, no one was talking about the ZX2 anymore, and I actually thought they were already discontinued, especially since the regular Escort was already cancelled. But anyway, it got a revised front end for 2003, but by the end of the 2003 model year, production ended, and the very last ZX2 rolled out the assembly line on March 21st, 2003. This car was cool when it first came out, and the first time I saw one of these in person, I didn't even know what it was. But at some point I figured out that it was pretty much a two-door Escort. It even had the frameless doors, which I thought was a cool touch because a lot of sport coupes did not have frameless doors. By 2003, it would have been better if the car had got a proper redesign. I mean, keep the weight low, keep the price low, keep it economical, but thoroughly update the car to also keep it relevant. Hell, if Ford was too cheap to develop a whole new platform, they could have just revised the old platform and gave us new sheet metal and a new interior, and maybe bump up the horsepower to about 170. But instead, we just got a lukewarm refresh. Well, not even a refresh, they just tweaked the front end ever so slightly and called it a day. They said the Escort and the ZX2 were no longer needed, since the Ford Focus had arrived along with its performance variants. But still, the ZX2 was relatively dirt cheap, and it provided pretty much everything that someone was looking for in a small, economical two-door coupe. And as far as price, when this car was brand new, you could pick one up for a base price of $13,145. After all, this was the entry-level two-door coupe segment, and that's a segment that we just don't have much of anymore these days. With the 2-liter 130 horsepower combined with the 5-speed manual, this little 2,500-pound coupe could run from 0 to 60 in about 7.5 seconds, according to Motor Trend magazine. And they also mentioned that this car was faster than just about every other car priced under 20 grand. So definitely not bad performance considering how low the price was. I mentioned the Ford Probe earlier in this video. I will be discussing how the Probe eventually became the final generation Mercury Cougar in a different video. Alright, well that's it for this discussion. Let us know if you owned a ZX2 or if you drove one and how you liked it. Alright, well thanks for watching and I'll catch you guys on the next one.